If you've ever thought yoga wasn't for you because you're not slim, young, bendy, or spiritual enough, then today's conversation will gently challenge that. Or perhaps you do practice yoga but have wondered if there is something deeper available to you beyond the postures. Then today's conversation will open that door for you too. Today I am joined by Shona Langridge. Shona spent 25 years working in the corporate world of marketing and sales before she began following a completely different calling into yoga and well-being. Shona began her journey with Bikram hot yoga, a practice that she is still deeply passionate about. She completed her Bikram teacher training course in Thailand in 2014 and has since taught across Australia, the USA, UK and Europe. And since then has continued to expand her knowledge through Vinyasa Yoga, Ashtanga, Yin Yoga, Inferno Hot Pilates, Tibetan sound bowls, and has most recently begun to work with mat and reformer Pilates as well. Today, she teaches a beautiful fusion of these different practices. What I love about Shona's approach is that she sees yoga as an ongoing journey, not something that you master and complete once, but a practice that keeps on revealing more about who you are the more that you practice it. As Shona says, we all have to start somewhere and there is never an end to where yoga can take you. So let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome to Higher Self Mastery, the podcast for women ready to leave behind who they were told to be and remember who they truly are. I'm your host, Dharmi Schumacher. This is your space to come home to yourself, to honor the inner pull for more truth and more depth, and more meaning as you enter a new chapter of your life. Together, we're reframing midlife crisis into the midlife magic that it actually is, because this is your rebirth. Through soulful conversations and spiritual tools, you'll reconnect to your truth and reclaim your voice and live the life that your soul came here for. So let's begin. Welcome, Shona, to Higher Self Mastery. I am so grateful to have you here, and I am very excited for my listeners to hear the valuable wisdom that you have to share all about yoga. So I'm going to hand it straight over to you, Shona. Would you like to introduce yourself and say a little bit about how you began your journey with yoga and who you help and how you serve them?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Dharmi. It's a privilege to be sharing this with you, and thank you for asking me to be part of your podcast. So I studied business and international management, international languages at university. And back in the day, I had this idea of being this international businesswoman of mystery. I had absolutely no interest in yoga whatsoever. If somebody mentioned the word yoga to me, I would just not yawn, but I would just walk away. And so I ended up having a career in working for major corporates all around the world, working in sports marketing, mostly sales, marketing, advertising. And I did that, honestly, Dharmi, for probably about 26 years. And over time, I began to recognize that, quite honestly, I was changing as a person, and that I didn't recognize the person that I had become. So the person that I was as a child, as an adolescent, as a university student, and then as a fully grown marketeer and an adult, I just changed so much to the point of not liking who I'd become. And I recognized that a lot of this had to do with the corporate world and the competitiveness, the women in business. I used to do a lot of work in the Far East, and there was a lot of competitive. There was a deep competitiveness about being being a woman versus a man, and how you're going to handle yourself. You almost had to, as a woman, had to work a lot harder to do that. And I became somebody that I wasn't really very proud of, if I'm really honest with you. I began to not lie, but I adapted the truth. I wasn't authentic. I felt this knot inside me of positioning myself as something that I really wasn't. And I almost had become something that I thought people wanted me to be, as opposed to being an authentic version of myself. And this had gone over a long period of time. And a friend of mine said to me, "Would you like to try a yoga class, Shona? I've heard about this hot yoga." And I just looked at her and just went, I really don't think so. And anyway, long story short, I tried it, absolutely hated it. I felt very self-conscious. I felt very uh, aware that I wasn't able to do a lot of the shapes and wasn't, looking the part. So I thought. And I came out of the class and I said to her, "Thank you for giving me that opportunity to share that moment with you, but I will never do that again." Anyway, long story short, I did go back. And the second time I went back, something shifted in my head. I think it was the connection with the teacher, maybe a different frame of mind. And I realized that yoga to me was yoga could then potentially have an opportunity to bring me more balance back into my life, because this corporate world had completely unbalanced me, if there is such a word. And I was, and just not being authentic to me. And so that was the very, very start of my little yoga journey, taking the courage, or having the courage, or breaking out of the mold of my thinking of what I thought and my expectations of what I thought yoga was going to be, stepping onto that mat with my friend, completely out of my comfort zone. And this door, the universe opened this beautiful door for me to not just explore myself, but to reconnect with my body, to reconnect with the essence, I think, of who I really was actually meant to be. And so then I went, after 3 years, I decided to go and do teacher training. And I did a whole host of different trainings, from hot yoga to went to India to do vinyasa and yin yoga, and sound healing as well. But everything was very much yoga and holistically wellness based. And so that was the start of my yoga journey.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I know so many of the women listening to this will be sitting there listening, going, "Oh my gosh, that's me. That's me." Not necessarily that they're now yoga teachers, but in this conflict of not recognizing yourself, waking up one day and asking yourself, how on earth did I get here? Like, who am I? And feeling at great unease with where we have arrived, because maybe it suited you at one point, maybe it did fit your identity at one point, but you outgrew it, or maybe it never did, right? But you followed it because you thought that was the way to success, or that's just what you do in life, or that was what was expected of us. And there's so many reasons why we can end up in a life that we don't really recognize or like. But 100%, I know most of the women, when we get to this beautiful awakening phase of our life where we are transitioning in our 40s, late 30s, 50s, that is one of the biggest realizations that we have. So I know they're all listening to you, nodding away, going, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh," and hearing the courage that you had to then be able to break free from that. I think that's one of the most difficult things.
But it is a frightening prospect, to go from a world that you're very aware of, or kind of not comfortable with. That's not the right word, because I was becoming less comfortable with it. That was the problem. So it felt like I was living two different lives. So going and doing a corporate world, because after I did all my yoga training, I came back and I was fearful of leaving the corporate world, because that gave me the stability of the income, the consistency of the money. But then this world of yoga was teaching me about my self-awareness. It was about my resilience. It was about connecting, this real deep sense of self. And the
Mm,
two worlds were very conflicting. And I did that for quite a while, doing both at the same time. And
mm,
then eventually, bless him, it was actually my brother. I said, this is not sitting with me at all. And I've got to make a decision and go one path or the other. And he said, what's the worst thing that can happen? Give it a go for a year, go 100% yoga and see what happens. The worst thing is that you can go back and get another job. And that was 8 years ago, and I've never looked
yeah,
back. And it's
amazing.
interesting you say about the aging thing, because I think when we get to our 30s, 40s, the midlife area, I think we all begin to speak about things that we're losing. We're losing or women do anyway, we're losing our
Mm,
beauty, we're losing our flexibility, we're losing our, I don't know, our sense of self or whatever it is. But I think what I found that yoga offered me a totally different perspective. It
mm,
offered me and it invited me to focus on what I was actually gaining as opposed to
oh,
losing as I was
beautiful.
getting older. And
Yeah,
by that I mean, you know, learning to come home to myself, learning to be true to myself, um, learning to to be much more aware of my emotions, my feelings, and my strength and my resilience. And I think, our bodies change. Yes, of course they do. And so the way we need to move with our body also changes as we get older. And that's
yes.
really important. We can't keep chasing that energy that we had 25 years ago. And it was a shift in my mindset to realize that, um, yoga, and I think I've said this to you before, yoga met me at the level where I was at when I chose to go
Yes.
into it. And that supports women in so many different ways, through mobility, through energy levels, through that calming of the nervous system. But most importantly, it was just that self connection. And
Mm,
um, and the nervous system settling. And that doesn't mean that, the struggles aren't there in life. They're still there. But I found through yoga and just trying it just allowed me to look at those challenges in a different way. And not just the external challenges, but the internal challenges of getting
mm.
older and realizing that my body can't do what it used to do.
Yes. Oh gosh, so much you say there. That I know I want to speak on, and we'll have to be selective because we won't be able to speak on all of it. Um, so for the ladies that are tuning in to the podcast, because many of them will be in this holistic world, in this spiritual world, I would like to bet that they have all heard of yoga. I think most people have all heard of yoga, and most of them will have probably been to at least one class, if not regular practitioners of yoga. So I would like you to speak, though, to maybe perhaps some of those ladies who are new to this world, who may have been to the one class, have a very narrow or limited experience of what yoga can be for them, because maybe they went to that first class and it was a hit. They connected with the teacher, or maybe it was more like what your experience was, where they walked away and didn't feel like they fit in. Like, even though they know that it can be something that could potentially help them, they just feel like they don't have a place or don't belong in that world. I do feel like that is becoming less and less the truth
Mm,
nowadays. That is really dissolving, and that's beautiful to see, because there are so many different styles of yoga and so many different teachers as well, with all different body shapes and sizes, which is so encouraging.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I'm going to invite you, Shona, if you can, please, to speak to that maybe entry level woman who's new to yoga, but also to speak to the woman who's been practicing yoga for quite some time, and talk about why they should deepen their practice, or maybe their practice has fallen off for them and why they should return to their practice, because it can be so supportive and
mm.
transformational in so many ways. I know what I'm asking you is such a big question here, but whatever surfaces in your mind at the moment, I'll trust will be what my audience needs to hear. Can you speak on that a little bit for us,
Sure.
please? Thank you.
I mean, thank you. It's a beautiful question, and it's, of course, the journey is different for everybody. Whether you've been practicing for years, whether you're just starting out, I think at some level the practice always starts from a physical perspective, because that's what we're doing a physical practice. But I quickly realized very, very soon after I started practicing that the yoga is the physical part of yoga is such a small part of it, really. Yoga has become, for me, and for those people that do practice on a regular basis, I would say it's become more of a self-study way. It's become a way of recognizing our patterns, our habits, our our the things that we're grateful for. And it's become a lot more holistic. It's become
Can you expand on that a little bit? And that's really interesting. When you say it helps you to see your habits and your patterns, are you talking about physical habits and patterns, or mental, or both?
all of them, both.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I realized that the way you do one thing is pretty much the way you do everything. Like if you're rushing from one thing to the next, for example, in your work life, the chances are that you'll, in yoga, be rushing to the from one posture to the next. You'll want to get it done really quickly because you've got your clock time, you've got something else to do. So the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. That's what I've recognized for myself. And I was that person. I was the person that wanted to rush through a yoga practice because I had somewhere else to be.
Yeah.
And that was a massive pattern for me to
Yes.
believe that more was more. Yoga
Yes.
has taught me that less is more, actually,
Hmm.
and not
Hmm.
just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Hmm.
For the new
Hmm.
people that are starting a yoga practice, that probably sounds like gobbledygook and they don't understand what that means. But I think I would encourage anybody at any level, at any age, to just have the confidence just to start, just to step onto your mat. And yes, it does depend on your connection with the teacher. There are all sorts of different yoga practices. And I think, it's like you have to kiss a few frogs to find out the style of yoga that is going to suit you. Hot yoga isn't for everybody. Yin yoga isn't for everybody. But I think just doing any form of breathing practice, any form of practice that is going to connect you to your physical and to your cells, emotionally, is going to be a beautiful thing. And it will shift the conversation that you will have with yourself about getting fitter, because people will step onto a yoga mat because they want to get fitter. It'll change from getting fitter to feeling more connected to yourself, to other people. And that comes back to those patterns. I was so busy rushing through my world that I wasn't connecting with myself and I wasn't connecting with other people, really. I thought I was, but I wasn't. And so things will begin to shift, and then one thing changes and then everything changes, and it's like a little domino effect. So I don't know
I
if I've
love
really
that.
answered your question, actually.
Yes, no,
Because
you have, and it's okay if you haven't, because what you share is so valid and so important. And I just want to highlight what you just said there. Um, it's not just a physical practice that you squeeze in, because so often yoga is available in fitness studios, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just makes it more accessible, it makes it more available, easier to get to. However, there is then the danger that it is like a HIIT workout or a strength circuit workout or something like that. Like you say, you squeeze it in, you rush there, you're cutting off people in traffic from work to quickly get to your yoga class, right? And you run in and you're all busying around. We've all been there, and there's no judgment, because we all just have to walk this path, right? But that's not what yoga's about. It is, and I know this sounds cliche, but it is that mind, body, spirit connection. And it is about slowing down, which you've just highlighted. And I think that's the first thing that the listeners should take away, if that's something they haven't already embodied in their yoga practice, is the slowness of it. And really, because that's when you get to hear what's going on inside. There's no point in being the best at all of the moves, and we've seen those acrobatic yoga students in the class, and we're looking over our shoulder like, how on earth are they doing that? Like, and you think they are the best student in the class, but not necessarily so, because in their head they might not even be present. They might be thinking about what they're cooking for dinner, or thinking about the girlfriend that they're going out to meet after class, or whatever it is. They're not actually slowing down, they're just really flexible. And I think that's really important.
And also, yes,
Sorry.
you're right, Dharmi. No, I was sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you realize that, you can stand on one fingernail or do a headstand. That doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't make you a better yoga person. And, even as a yoga teacher, there are thousands of postures that I can't do very well. My students teach me every single day more than they could possibly imagine. So this idea of being, the teacher is the teacher. We're all teachers of each other. We're all mirror each other in some way. And, I think you can go into a practice, do the best you can. And you could argue that actually it's very easy to be calm and grounded and centered and spiritual in a yoga class for an hour. But the real test is when you take that learning and those philosophies and those ways of being into the outside world. And that's not so easy. And that's where the yoga really begins, outside of the mat, outside of the class. And I realize that my whole life now has become one big yoga class. Whether you get hacked off that the barista made you the wrong coffee, whether somebody cuts you up on the street in driving, that's all yoga. How you respond. And that's got nothing to do with a posture. It's got nothing to do with looking good or doing a handstand or whatever,
Absolutely. And to share a little bit of the background on what happened just before this recording, yoga, you and I both had to call on our yoga. So for the listeners, this might seem like a seamless recording, and it is. And we are very grounded. But what you don't know is it took Shona and I 1 hour to work through the technology that was working against us for some reason today to actually even press record and start this conversation. And we could have completely allowed it to take over our emotions, but we didn't, did we?
No,
I think
we were
we
very
stayed
humorous
pretty
about
grounded.
we were very, very accepting of the drama.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm not always that grounded, but I think certainly for me, the yoga practice that I have and the yoga practice that you obviously have, that speaks to us when we're in those moments. It's just like surrender.
There will always be things that challenge us, won't there? Let's be honest,
Yes.
whether it's tech, whether it's a person, whether it's our children, our husbands, whatever it is. But when we start to really have a deeper sense of who we are and our connection with ourselves, the breath will teach you to slow down. And as soon as your breath gets agitated, everything gets out of kilter. So it's just, yoga just has really helped me. And I would encourage everybody to look at it deeper as a way of giving me emotional steadiness, I suppose. Not because life, as I said earlier, not because life is any less challenging, but we just meet those challenges in different ways.
That's right. And that's a really important point to bring on. Like, just because we navigated the challenge earlier with grace doesn't mean we always do. Right. We are also just humans. So we do lose our shit. It's okay. Right. We don't always stay grounded. But sometimes, and I think I'd like to say, we come back to that groundedness a lot quicker. We remember that reacting like this is just not going to get anyone anywhere. So then you're able to come back and ground and center yourself. And You mentioned breath work there. I'd really love for you to just speak a little bit on that because um, pranayama, as it's known in yoga, which is the art of breathing and different types of breathwork practices, is a big component of yoga, which we don't always see in gym style
Mm.
yoga classes. And I know you mentioned it's a big component. Can you speak a little bit more about um, breath work in yoga and the importance of it, how it works and fits in with the
Mm.
practice?
Sure. I mean, you're right. Pranayama is I guess the essence of everything. You know, if you think about your breath, our breath, without the breath, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We wouldn't have our life. We wouldn't, none of this would mean anything anyway, right? Because the life, the breath it is life. So
Mm,
if we're, and it's something that we can't see. And just because we can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so to feel connected to the breath, uh, to something that you can't see that allows you to live the life that you've chosen to lead, that's huge. So that's one thing that I always try and talk about and instill in my yoga students. Obviously, of course, you're moving to the breath, inhaling to prepare, you exhale to move. With your effort, you move. And the more you tune into your breath, the more easily the body is able to respond. If you're moving against your breath or your breath is like short and sharp, then your body holds tension. It gets agitated as well.
mm,
So the most important thing you can do in a yoga practice is forget about what the shapes and the postures look like, but focus on moving to your own breath. It's like a moving meditation, moving to your own breath and moving into stilling the mind, stilling the body. So you're moving, but you're moving into stillness, and that breath helps you do that.
mm, absolutely. And when I'm in my yoga practice, something that I feel how the breath really helps is because when you're focused on the breath as you are moving in the different asana positions, is that it helps you then to stay present. Because if you're focused on your breath or focused on alignment within your body, your mind doesn't have the opportunity then to go wandering off somewhere else. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Actually, that I couldn't have articulated it better than that. That's exactly right. I think to stay present and to stay grounded, you can only be in your breath. And I think, and again, as I said, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're having an argument with somebody, if you can stay grounded in your breath and breathe through it, it's amazing how the response versus the reaction will be so different. And to stay
Mm,
present in a yoga class with your breath is the most powerful thing you can do.
mm,
That is the yoga,
mm.
effectively.
Beautiful. Just to stay on the breath work a little bit more before we move on to a couple of different topics. In yoga, some of the listeners who have participated in a yoga class may have experienced different types of pranayama. So some of the more common ones would be breath of fire or alternate nostril breathing, as
Mm.
well as the full belly breath. Just to mention a few, there's some more interesting ones like with the humming and things like that that we do. Um, can you speak a little bit about why there are so many different types of breath work? Like, isn't breathing just breathing? Like, why does there need to be so many different types of way of breathing, and how are they useful in case
Mm.
somebody's participating in this but doing it because they've been told to do it and don't really understand?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A really good question. Um, I mean, there are the breath cycles, I guess, are really important. And again, it's about connecting into your body. The different types of breath work are linked to what you kind of want to achieve. Like the breath of fire, for example, Kapalabhati is a very fast breathing. It's a detoxing breath. So it's about cleansing deep from your lungs, from the inside out. Something like alternate nostril breathing is a lot more calming. It's a lot more grounding. So it really depends what you're trying to achieve in your, and I would hope that in the yoga class that the teacher would explain the point of that breathing and why they're doing it. And I think what I would encourage people, because it's not easy to get it right, and it takes a long time. And after years and years of practicing myself, even now, I don't always get it right. So I think it's just, it evolves with your own practice. And I think, but ultimately it is cleansing from the inside out. The breath is always there to help cleanse emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I think that's really what people need to take away from it. But I personally wouldn't get too het up on the type of breathing that you do unless you're really, really interested in that. But I think it's more about breathing to your body and what it is that you need. Like if you need more calm breathing, if you need more grounding, you don't want to be doing breath of fire too often, because that's going to give you a bit more energy. But if you want energy, then that's what you take from it.
That's, I think, a beautiful summary. Is that breath work is whatever type of breath work you participate in is cleansing, because you are taking in new life force energy, and as much as possible in the different ways, expelling what's already in your body and releasing that and taking in new life force energy. So essentially you are circulating intentionally and hopefully filling your body with life-sustaining energy, which is full of fresh nourishment and nutrients and everything else that your body needs. And I also loved how you said that we don't always get it right, because I think there can be, I mean, sometimes with the postures, you may go into a yoga class expecting not to be able to do things, but breath work can be hard too. It really can. I remember when I first started Kapalabhati, like it was so hard. My stomach was going and moving in all the wrong times, and it's practice, just like the asanas take practice as well.
Breathwork, I have to say, can be incredibly transformational. You need to be in the right setting. You need to be guided properly. You need to be able to surrender as well, and not be fixated with trying to get it right. It's a bit like, like a little baby, when it falls down, it doesn't give up, oh, I can't walk now. It gets up and tries again, right? And it keeps going. It keeps falling. It keeps getting up. It keeps falling. It's the same with breathing, or with yoga, or with anything new that you're trying. You're never gonna go to the gym once and suddenly have muscles. You're never going to go to a yoga class once and suddenly be able to do a headstand. You're never going to be able to go to one breathwork class and then suddenly everything it makes sense. So it takes courage and dedication and commitment and self-compassion, actually, to do all of these things on a regular basis. And eventually you'll find a teacher, or a class, or whatever it is that will suit you and where you are at. And that's really important, because it's not right for everybody,
No. And different flavors for different seasons as well. Like I would previously, 10 years ago, would have loved vinyasa classes. Now, it's not that I don't participate in them, but I'm much more inclined to do a yin yoga. That's just where my body and where I am in my life is just that slower, more intentional, deeper movement just suits better. And different times of the day as well, different times of your month as well, your cycle. So it's about experimenting and really trying and all the different ones and seeing how they fit and how they feel for you. Can you, there are breath work is just pranayama is one arm of yoga, right? As is asanas, one arm of yoga. And there are a few other things as well that maybe people just don't really hear about. Without going into too much detail, I would love for you to just perhaps speak a little bit more about that, if you would, like the Raja Yoga, the mind, and then you've got the Bhakti Yoga as well. Are you able to speak a little bit about the full spectrum of what yoga really is? Because I think you alluded to it earlier. It's a way of life, isn't it? It's not just a practice.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, the breathing and the postures are a very small part of a yoga practice. Ultimately, it's about sitting with yourself, I think, and being yourself and becoming a better version of you. And that might sound a bit trite, but because but there's a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily even consider that part of yoga. They might say, oh, it's self-development or whatever, which I guess it's all part of it. But I think the practice of yoga, yes, I mean, there are different limbs of yoga, but and that's all linked into whether it's being just kind, just simply being kind, or whether it's about speaking your truth, whether it's about boundaries. There are so many different elements of living your life that come into a yoga practice. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that shocked me about not shocked me, but surprised me about becoming a yoga teacher. You know, it's not all about, as I said, looking apart and being able to do every single posture that a teacher asks you to do. It's more about patience. It's about self-understanding. It's about self-reflection. And yeah, the postures are really like the tiniest part of a yoga practice. And there are Sanskrit names for all of that, obviously. But I don't know how much you want me to talk about that. But that's the essence of it.
Sure.
It's a full holistic way of being. And back 5,000 years ago, when yoga in India first began, it had nothing. It was all to do with sitting with yourself, with your breath. It had nothing to do with
Yes.
movement. And I think the Western culture has taken it into that exercise way, and it does have that,
Yes.
of course, element to it. But I think it's more listening to yourself rather than criticizing yourself. And it builds the relationship with yourself. And that's ultimately what we're all trying to be the best we can be, right? In this short lifetime that we've been given. And yes, like you said, we've all made mistakes. We've all done stupid things. We've all done, well, I certainly have. I've said things to people that I wish I hadn't said. I've done things that I really regretted. And then we have to move on from that. And again, it's about learning to come home to the self that you are in that moment. That to me is yoga. And whatever name you want to
Yes.
put on it, it doesn't matter. But it's up, the
Yes.
core of it is very simple: getting to know yourself, being yourself, coming back to who you're
Yes.
meant to be. Does that
Yes.
answer your question?
Beautiful. It does. It does indeed. And I think also when I first did my teacher training many, many decades ago, again, not it was a surprise that actually not that there is an end goal, and I love how you say that, it's an ongoing journey, because that's what it is. It's a journey, it's a way of life, but how most people do place the emphasis on the physical practice, and that includes the breath work, because breath work is still physical, right? And that's why it's most relatable as well, because it's something that's tangible, and we can sort of see results, we can gauge what's going on. But actually, all of those asanas, all of the breath work, all of the practice is, from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is ultimately there to the physical movements that we are creating, the space that we're creating, the energy that we're shifting in our body is so that we can then sit in that stillness and connect with source and connect with ourselves. So it's a preparation. All the physical movement and the body work is just a preparation for a deeper level of work. If we now can, Shona, just speak a little bit more about how yoga can be specifically supportive for women who are in their late 30s, 40s, 50s in this midlife transition. How will it specifically support them with some of the things that they might be experiencing, which I mean, the list is quite long and extensive, but there is certain things like losing muscle mass as our hormones change as well, like with the hot flushes, the memory fog and things like that. Mobility, maybe pain as well in certain joints, but just the general stress as well that these changes within our mental and physical body can also be adding, because it's just so much to cope with, and life just can feel overwhelming and quite challenging as we're navigating these changes within ourselves. So how can yoga be a supportive tool for women who may be navigating this?
It's a really good question. And, we all have to go through it, and we all respond to these changes over those midlife years in different ways. And as I said very early on in this conversation, I think we often do think of it as though as we're getting older, we're losing something. But actually, I'd like to encourage people to reframe that way of thinking, and that you're gaining. It's just a transition. It's not that you're losing, you're just transitioning into a different way of being. And I actually think that's a really strong, a strong thing for us all, to, as we get older, to have that sense of self, a deeper sense of self, a deeper sense of connection. Yes, we do have to deal with hormonal changes, physical changes. And I think for me personally, yoga has helped give me back some of that confidence. And it's just, as I said, it's just about starting. You just have to make the commitment to yourself that actually, yes, I'm not going to have the energy that I had 25 years ago. However, what I can do is, take supplements. I can do exercise. I can work differently to my, to what the way my body is moving, and really respect and honor where my body is. And that's what yoga has taught me. And I think subtle movements, gentle stretches, deep breathing, movement of it doesn't have to be, running 10 miles. It doesn't have to be, being in the gym for 3 hours. That's what I've learned from yoga, that yoga it can build strength. It can build flexibility. It can build stamina. It can build confidence, and just overall feeling better in yourself. And that is, I think, a really profound, sort of result of practicing yoga on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And you meet like-minded people that are, and you'll feel a sense of compassion and kindness, I think, more to yourself when you start to recognize that things aren't the same, and it's okay that they're not the same. So it brings, the yoga for me has brought me a lot of patience and compassion to my own body.
I
And I
love
really,
that. Yeah, because
yeah.
that's not something we would normally think about. Like, oh, I'll do some yoga to help me bring more compassion and kindness to myself. But you're absolutely right, because when you start to become more forgiving, when you can't maybe do something physically, then that's then going to translate into all the other areas, because this period of life, we can be really hard on ourselves about, why can't I do this anymore? I used to do this and I was so this and I was so that. And we compare ourselves with a younger version of ourselves that no longer exists. And that kindness is so important, that grace, the forgiveness that we give ourselves as we transition in this period is so, so important. And naturally, I think also when you're with yoga, when you're bringing in the breath work, when you're bringing in the mindfulness into how you're moving from posture to posture, you're slowing down your mind. So you're going to start to regulate your nervous system. And naturally as well, with that comes a calming of any stress that we may be carrying as well. It's just my go-to activity for everything. You know, when I'm feeling off sorts, or if I am feeling a little bit achy or weak, or I have a minor injury, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, like I just always go yoga. Yoga. It's like the yoga mat just gets rolled out. And I don't do very much sometimes. Sometimes it literally is 5 or 10 minutes just to make that contact with my mat. And because I've done it for so long, I have a relationship with my mat. Like, I'm quite possessive over it. I have had it for about 25 years, that same mat. But it's sacred to me. So when I'm on that mat, it means that I'm making time for myself, however little that might be.
I think that's a really important point that you've just emphasized about. It doesn't have to be an hour-long class. It can be 5 minutes, it can be 15 minutes. And that's really, really important. And what I found was when I have that connection with myself and I feel better in myself just for moving or even being still, because that's actually, it could be a yin class, so maybe it's just about calming things down, that actually everybody around me gets the benefits from me being a better person. I'm sure you understand that from having children, you know, and especially, you know, when you're a better version of yourself, everybody around you benefits. And I think that's really important, to take the time, 10 minutes every day, or not even every day. It doesn't have to be every day. But yeah, I think that's a really valid point.
Beautiful. As we start to just wrap this conversation up, Shona, for somebody who's listening who's never tried yoga, what would you suggest is the best place for them to start? Would it be an in-person class? Would it be something online? Is there a particular style of yoga that you might say for them to go and dabble in first?
I think it depends on their level of fitness as well. Like if they, I mean, I would just say find a class, a local class to you. If there's a way you could do something privately, maybe it might build your confidence, because sometimes it can be intimidating going into a class if you haven't done it before. But I wouldn't worry about that, because I think people are in the yoga world are generally very, very welcoming, and they would be really happy to encourage anybody to begin at some point. But if you didn't feel that that was like a local class, maybe in a community center or something like that, I don't know, or a studio, because studios can be intimidating. Maybe do something privately or do something online. Get somebody that you trust, you know, explore, to come and give you a private lesson. Because I do a lot of that as well. And I think you have people at all levels, people that are starting from the very beginning, people that have been practicing for years, but they just want a few tweaks. So there's room for everything. But I would just say have the confidence to start, and it's amazing what comes from there.
Beautiful. From the different types of yoga, just very quickly, from the different styles of yoga that maybe you teach, can you tell us a little bit about which are the more perhaps physically challenging ones, and ones that maybe are a little bit more accessible? So if someone is completely new to this, or somebody who wants to deepen and try different styles of classes, they know what to expect as they go into these.
Yes, I mean, it depends. If you want to do a lot of movement, and balancing and challenging the flexibility of your body. Something like Ashtanga yoga or vinyasa, a challenging. That's basically, vinyasa means movement to breath. So you're constantly moving within a class, and you can be balancing, twisting, back bending, forward bending. You can be doing a bit of everything, but it tends to flow, and there's very little rest. Again, depends on the teacher and the class. If you want to do something a little bit more calming and settling, hatha yoga is a really good thing, or yin yoga, where you do a posture. In hatha yoga, you do a posture, you stop, you do a posture, you stop. It's not this constant flow, and so you can really tune into your body and your breath. Yin yoga, you're holding the postures for 3 to 5 minutes, but everything is on the floor. Everything is supported by the mat. But that can be hard and challenging in a different way as well. Holding a posture for 5 minutes, even though you're just not moving, I think mentally it can be stronger and harder. So it depends. But I think you'll find, if you step onto the mat, try a variety of different classes, and you'll find your boogie. You'll find what it is that lifts your heart, and you will never ever feel bad leaving a yoga class. You just won't. No matter what kind of yoga it is. Unless you really have had a tough time with it, that, I don't know, whatever it is, the teacher, the heat or whatever, but you'll always feel better, generally speaking. You might not like the class, but you'll always feel better within yourself after you've done a yoga class. So give it a go.
Beautiful. I think that's really important. I think whenever you step into a yoga practice, is to honor your body and listen to your body, and then the results can only be beneficial and positive. It's only when we force something or try to do what our neighbor's doing, even though your body's screaming, 100%. I can't do that, and you're like, but I've got to do it because they're doing it or the teacher's doing it, and it's just like, no, because then you're going to do some injury, or you're going to hate it and never go back. So it's really listening to what we are wanting and capable of as well.
Actually, you mentioned bhakti yoga earlier, and that really, to me, is probably the highest form of yoga, where you are offering your practice to somebody else or something else. So you're doing it for somebody else, and you're doing it not. Yes, of course, you're going to get physical benefits, but I think that's a beautiful thing to recognize, that our limitations, and not to force anything. If you're forcing something, you're not doing yoga. You're just doing another form of exercise. And we have enough in our society today. We have enough pushing and shoving, and putting ourselves into situations that we don't need to be in. So don't let yoga become part of that, is what I would say. So I totally agree with you.
100%. Beautiful. Shona, it's been an absolute joy to learn more about yoga, and I so hope that the listeners have found this valuable. I'm sure they have, and they are now feeling inspired to go and book on to a class in their local vicinity. But please share a little bit about how my listeners can dive into your world. What do you offer? How can they work with you? If there's anything coming up, can you tell us how people can work with you specifically?
Oh, thank you. So I do private classes. So that's 1-to-1. I can go into people's homes, obviously if they're near me. So I live in London, but I can go to people's homes, or they can come to me. I also do online classes. I do online group classes, and they're welcome to join me online. I can also do private classes online if that suits them, as well, at a time that suits them. And I run workshops, I run retreats. This year and last year we went to Marrakesh and to Egypt. Next year we'll probably go to Greece or maybe Turkey. Lots of things planning in the planning. We do weekend retreats here in the UK as well. So lots of lots of beautiful opportunities. And in those retreats, we do all forms of yoga. It's not just one style, so you can get a whole variety. But the way I work is very much listening to what people want, and obviously curating and creating programs or classes around what it is that they might need, whether it's more strength or more flexibility, or working on specific postures. So yeah, lots of exciting things coming, and I can share my website details with you, with the listeners. And so yes, you can have a look on my website. And yeah, I would just encourage anybody to just give it a go. Give it a go. You've got nothing to lose. And if you don't like it, that's great. That's great too. It's not for everybody.
No. No, but there is so much variety out there. I'm almost certain that everybody can find a form of yoga that they really like.
100%.
Thank you so much. We absolutely will put all of your links in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Shona, start working with her, maybe find out more about her retreats, and they do look amazing, then all the links will be in the show notes. Please do go check her out. Now, finally, to close this recording, Shona, as we part ways, we have a little tradition, or I have started a little tradition to ask you a question from these conversation cards. Now, they come in 3 levels. There is level 1, which is entry level, level 2, which is mid-range, level 3 is tell me your deepest, darkest secrets.
Love.
What level would you like to answer today?
Oh, let's deep dive in. Let's go level 3.
I love it. None of my guests have denied me a level 3 so far. And
seriously,
do you know what? A card jumped out. I love a jumper, and it's a level 3. So this is a big one. Okay. And the question is, what is your biggest insecurity?
I think off the top of my head, just there and then, my biggest insecurity is my self-doubt. So I will second guess myself, and I always feel, not always, but a lot of the time, I will feel that imposter syndrome. And that's that insecurity of not feeling good enough.
That's what came to my head when I read the question. Yeah.
What, for you or for me?
For me. As I read the question, mine was not being good enough.
Not being good enough.
It's how many of us women carry that wound?
Why is that? What is that?
That's another conversation. Part 2.
Self-touch, part 2. Let's get those. We should have got those questions out ages ago. Yeah, self-doubt.
Maybe at one of your retreats. We could do that.
I love that.
Yes, thank you so much for answering that so honestly and so transparently, because it is so easy to see people like yourself who have these successful careers and are leading in your industry as experts, and for it to look so easy from the outside. But the truth is, you are just human. You are just another being navigating life and your own wounds and your own limitations, and we're no different to one another. And you carry that wound of sometimes not feeling good enough. I carry that wound of sometimes feeling like I'm not good enough. And I imagine so many people tuned in listening are thinking, me too. Right?
Yeah.
It's normal. So I'm really, really grateful to you for answering that so truthfully. And once again, thank you so much for your time, your patience, and your beautiful energy, and for the work that you do. I so love the way that you teach yoga. And yes, there's just something so magnetic about your energy, which is how we came to connect in the first place. And I so hope the listeners tuned in today will dive deeper into your world and in one form or another come and do some work with you. Thank you so
That's
much,
so kind,
Shona.
Dharmi. I'm grateful for my heart, from my heart to yours. Honestly, beautiful. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share and to speak so openly, because we all have we all have our struggles, and we all have our different journeys. And I think we just have to support each other as much as we possibly can. And women are great at that. So thank you for
100%.
your support.
Thank you. Before we finish today's episode, I just wanted to let my lovely local listeners know that I've created a brand new in-person offering called a Sacred Exhale. These are beautiful, reflective gatherings for women who are tired of carrying the stress and the heaviness of the week into their weekend and are craving a space to pause, breathe, reconnect, and reset in a more intentional way. Each session will be shaped around seasonal living, natural cycles, and lunar energies, weaving together a delicious fusion of practices such as meditation, breathwork, journaling, movement, intention setting, rituals, and soulful conversations. The gatherings are taking place at BWB, the Collective in Whetstone in Leicestershire, and I'll pop the booking link in the show notes if your soul is whispering, I need this. I would absolutely love to welcome you into this space. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Higher Self Mastery. If something landed, moved you, or sparked a shift, I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman in your life that is also ready to rise. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, especially in these early days. It really helps others to find this work too. If you're craving deeper support and sisterhood, join my mailing list using the link below, where you'll be the first to receive free meditations, learn about up-and-coming retreats, and other ways that we can work together. Until next time, honor your truth and trust in the timing of your becoming.